Why did I choose to become a judge? Well, I guess I didn't really. I was a lawyer. I qualified at the bar. I was then a solicitor advocate in the higher courts. I was doing that for 17 years, prosecuting, defending, making my argument on a daily basis. And in those days, there wasn't really much publicity about judges and what they do or how to become a judge. But I just thought to myself, I just wonder what it would be like to make the decision myself. And in fact, what I did, I was a partner in a 30-partner law firm. So it was a large law firm, and I was leading my own team. And what I saw, in fact, was a vacancy for a parking adjudicator. Now, the thing about being a parking adjudicator is you can do it on an hourly basis. So you don't have to go and do the whole day. You can just go and do a couple of hours in the evening or on a Saturday morning. So I applied for that, and it didn't interfere with my practice. That's the point, because I did it on a Saturday morning or in the evenings. I did that, and then I saw an ad. Now, I'd never seen an ad on courts judiciary ever, and the JAC hadn't been created yet. So it was the Department of Constitutional Affairs. And I think it was probably in the early days of the adverts and things, and they had a selection centre. It was different than how they do it now. You had to fill in this really extensive form, and it was extensive. But then they had a whole day, and in the morning you had to do effectively an exam or a test. And I think there were a couple of those. And then in the afternoon there was a role play. And then right at the end of the day there was an interview. So they did the whole lot in one go. And so I did that. And I walked away, and I'm not just saying this, I walked away thinking, God, just no way. And I got a letter about 3 or 4 months later saying yes. And I have to say, there was nobody more shocked than I was. So the process has changed a lot since then. But that's how I started as a part-time judge. Well, Mum was working packing wagon wheels in a factory. Dad was a postman for 26 years. And people like us knocking around the local park, we didn't go and do degrees. And in fact, most of the people who I know either became taxi drivers, or maybe some of them are landlords, some of them are not even around anymore. So the one thing we didn't think about really was going off and going into a profession. So the first thing was even doing that. I graduated from a polytechnic, and then of course couldn't afford to do my bar exams. Now in those days you could just pitch up, pay 300 quid and do the exam. But then you had to pay for your pupillage, and I couldn't afford to do that. In those days you could become an employed barrister without pupillage. So that's what I did. Along the way I became a solicitor, and I suppose it was then that I realised I was actually quite good at persuading people. And clients came along, lots of them. And so one day I was invited to partnership. And I have to say, I never ever thought they'd make me a partner. So the challenges are at every single stage. It's not what's the challenge of becoming a judge. It's really what are the challenges of the legal profession. And one thing I never thought was I could ever become a judge. And so there is a major issue of confidence. And I think a lot of people of my background don't see themselves in those sorts of roles. And, I have to say, even now, there are times when I think I lack confidence. But the one thing I have done is, conscious of that, I've gone for it. And I have applied. And I'll tell you, when I have applied, I've got there. So, I think that has to be a major message, which is, yeah, I know you don't think they're looking for people like you, but actually they are. I think the first thing is, even if for a moment you lack confidence, go for it. Because I've surprised myself again and again and again by thinking I'm not sure, but applying. I've applied and I've got it. So I think that's the first hurdle. The second is that the application process is not simple. It is evidence-based. Now, the JAC are using competencies as the test. And you've really got to understand, you really have to understand what they're looking for. So you've got to identify what that evidence is going to be. Generalized statements like I'm a good communicator gets you nowhere. So the tip I would give you is understand what the competencies are. They're on the JAC website. There's guidance there. But more importantly than that, collect the evidence as you go along, so that what you're not doing is being faced with a 10-day window applying for a position and then thinking, what do I put on this form? Because if you go along and pick examples of where you've dealt with difficult situations, where you've had to deal with people from very different backgrounds from yourself, where you've had that amazing intellectual challenge but you've overcome it, and you're making notes as you go along, you're going to be ready when the time comes.